Hi, in this video, I'll show you how to basically enable the monitoring in Azure. So here I will be basically enabling the monitoring for a virtual machine. So I will be talking about, I'll be touching Log Analytics workspace where all the data will go, and data collection rule where we will be defining what all data needs to be captured. Mostly we will be capturing Windows event, and there is a data collection endpoint which basically talks about here we will be basically mapping the endpoints, and then based on this it will basically capture the data. And there is one more topic which is AMPLS, which is Azure Monitor Private Linked Scope. This will basically ensure all the data goes privately in the log analytics workspace, and then at the end we will be running the query on the log analytics workspace to see what all data what all events are coming to the workspace. So first thing, I have already created a VM, and this is my virtual machine. Let me just connect to this virtual machine. Capture. So this is the IP address of the VM. Okay, now after that I'll be creating the data collection endpoint and data collection rule and AMPLS. Okay, for AMPLS we also need to have one subnet, so I'll also create a subnet. Let me quickly create a subnet. I'll create in this itself. SNet AMPLS. We'll make it 26. Add. Okay, while AMPLS is getting created, let's quickly create the data collection rule. So it's called data collection rule. We'll go here. Or rather than creating the data collection rule first, I'll create the log analytic workspace first. RG log my log 03. So while the log analytics workspace is getting created, I will also create the data collection rule. This is also called DCR. So my DCR 03 resource group, I'll put it in the same resource group. I'll pick the same region. Okay, and here is a DC. It basically talks about mapping to DC. This is not mandatory, but when we need to ingest the data privately, basically we want to do the log ingestion to the log workspace on a private IP. That's when we need to actually define it. So we can do it later also. So for now, I'll just skip that. I'll add resource. In the resource, we will be picking the VM we've applied, and I'll move next. So as data collection rule, where we are defining the rule, I have also defined the VM, and also this data collection rule, when we basically define it, if you actually see the VM extensions, when we finish this, you will see here the Azure monitoring agent is getting installed automatically. So in the data collection rule, I'll pick Windows events. Let me select all, and destination, we'll define the destination, and I'll pick the workspace. Okay, so first create VM. Second thing, create log analytics workspace. third is ideally we should create the DCE first, but I have created DCR, and then fourth is DCE, and then fifth is AMPLS. Okay, so I have defined the events, also I have defined the destination where it forwards the logs to, which is a Lognalytics workspace. I'll move next, and I'll finish this. Now, while this is also getting created, I'll quickly create the data collection endpoints also. DCE, so data collection endpoint. And this is my DCE03. This is a must if we want to ingest the data privately. Okay, without this, it will not work. And if we basically, okay, there is one more thing with respect to resources. If you actually see here, data sources, okay. If I click on add, okay, you see there are a few things which are actually grayed out. Okay, these are grayed out because there is no DCE mapped to this particular VM. If you actually see, this is not mapped. Okay, if I map out DCE here, we would be able to capture more logs for this particular VM. So once the DCE map, all these options which are grayed out right now, this will also be visible. I'll show you. Let me quickly create DCE first. It will go here, here, next, and create. Okay. So I've created VM, lognet close it, DCR I've created, DCE I have created. Now, okay, DCE also created. Now let's start the configuration part. So let's start with DC. Okay, I'll go to DC and open DC. This is a resource. Okay, first thing, the isolation part. Okay, let me go to the Lognalytics workspace and network isolation. Public access, I will restrict this. Okay, ingestion access, basically how we are ingesting the logs to the workspace, we want to restrict it privately. Okay, and the same option is available within DCE also, so that also we need to modify. So if I go to DCE here, this is called network isolation and access, and I'm restricting it to private. Okay, I'll save this. Now there is a private access for which it basically requires AMPLS. Right now AMPLS is not created, so we need to basically map the AMPLS. So first thing here, I would say network isolation, set to private for login workspace as well as DC. Same thing, network isolation set to private, and map AMPLS. We need to map AMPLS here as well as here. So I'll quickly create AMPLS now, which is AMPLS Azure Monitor private. Let's go. So I'll create here and it will go in the same. This is my AMPLS 03. Query mode, we can open it, but ingestion mode should be private. Okay. Next. And next. And create. So AMPLS is also created. We need to configure this. Configure and point it to AMPLS submit. So now we'll configure this. There is a private endpoint. We'll create private endpoint. So PEAMPLS. Okay. Move next. It will talk about resource type, which is private link. This one, Microsoft.insights/private link scope, and resource is Lognatic workspace. This should be this, and yeah, we select the VNet and the subnet for the AMPLS which we created. Move next. These are the subnets it will create, and I'll create AMPLS also. So far we created VM, Lognatic Workspace, DC, DCR, DCE, and AMPLS, which is data collection rule, data collection endpoint, and Azure Monitor private link scope. And when we created this, here I have also mapped it to the subnet. Now we need to map this AMPLS to DCE as well as Lognatic's workspace. Okay, so let it create, and in the meantime, I'll go to my Lognatic workspace. This is my Lognatic workspace. Now I'll go to the data collection rule, and in the data collection rule, there is a resource section where we need to define the resource. This particular VM is already been defined. So after we add this here, the MMA agent should be installed, which is the monitoring agent, should be installed on this particular VM. Let's quickly verify. So it's extensions, and you see this is already installed. Perfect. So let's wait for the AMPLS to be created, and then we will start mapping it. Okay, so the AMPLS is ready now. So as mentioned here, AMPLS, we need to map it to DC as well as to Lognatic's workspace. So I'll go to DCE first. I'll open DCE, network isolation, and here we need to add. So this is must if we are basically if we want data ingestion to be happening on a private network. So this is must in that scenario. So I've already mapped it here. Let's wait for this to complete. Okay, this is mapped. Now do the same thing on the Lognatic workspace. So I'll go to Lognatic workspace. This is a network isolation. This I've already changed to ingestion to private. So I'll go to private access, and we'll to map the AMPLS. Okay. So this is getting mapped. Okay, perfect. So let's quickly validate one more time. So VM is created in the extensions, and the VM extensions. Our agent is already installed. Then go to the AMPLS, and this is the AMPLS. In the AMPLS, it basically creates a private endpoint, and if you go to DNS, you will see there are a lot of entries it has actually created. So we need to ensure that these should be resolvable from the VM. Okay, so I'll go inside VM, and so this is the entry we would like to solve. As you can see, this is going on a private IP, so this is what is expected. So all these AMPLS IPs should be resolved privately. Okay, so this is also done, and let's quickly validate the data collection endpoints. So in the data collection endpoint, there is a network isolation, And there's a mapping of this AMPLS. And in the resource section, our VM should be added here. Okay, so we need to add the VM. So this is a data collection endpoint. Let's wait for this to complete. Okay, let's wait. Maybe taking some time. Okay, so the VM is added in the data collection endpoint. Let's validate the data collection rule. In the data collection rule under the resource section, our VM is already defined. And as you can see here, our data collection endpoint is automatically mapped as it was not there previously, but now it is mapped automatically. It was not mapped previously. Okay, so this is also done. Now if I go to the source, as I showed you previously, there were a lot of options which have grayed out. Should be basically visible now. Okay, ideally this should be visible by now. I'm not too sure why it is not populating, but we have to do when you determine. Click here to switch. Let's quickly cross check. Okay, as you can see it now, all the most of the options are available now, and this is already added. That's why it is not showing, but most of the options are visible now. Okay. Now, this is the difference when you basically map the data collection endpoint, you would be able to capture more data. So all the configurations are done. Let's go to the log analytics workspace and validate if the um, so in the log analytics workspace, we just have one thing, which is the managed access ingestion we set to private, and this is also mapped to the AMPLS. Okay, so now for the query part, if we need to see our data is coming here or not, this is where you need to go. Maximize your log analytics experience. So go to view log, and by default it opens the query hub. We don't need query hub. I'll close this, and there is a simple mode. Change it to KQL mode and search here events. Let's check. So see, all the data are populating. Data is populating from the VM. So this completes the practical, and this is how we can ensure that the data is getting ingested privately, utilizing AMPLS to the log analytics workspace. Thank you so much.